So we will move swiftly on then to the minutes of the meeting on the 10th of October. Has anybody got any comments or questions on the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chair. I think it'd just be helpful to update members with where the project and business plans for the Atherstone Sports Club has got to. I did have a little discussion with Simon about that, but I think other members need to understand how that's being taken forward and any issues that Simon's picking up, because I understand Simon himself personally is handling this pulling together, given the lack of other staffing at his disposal.
Thank you. Over to you, Simon.
Through you, Chair. Thanks very much for that. So yeah, we are in the throes of some very detailed work with Atherstone Sports Club, and you'll recall that there are a number of different sections to that sports club. So in terms of the minute at 24B, it's the sports club that is pulling together the initial project plans, business plans, and site development plans. I have a meeting with the sports club tomorrow. Each of the sports clubs, with the exception of one, they've produced their individual club development plans, so they'll now be collated into the documentation that requires to be signed off by yourselves as members. Alongside that as well, we've also negotiated, all bar the shouting, the 30-year lease arrangements, and we've met with their legal representatives as well, so that work is done. So I'm anticipating being able to bring those documents forward in the not too distant future, but I'll know a little bit more tomorrow.
So just to be clear, do those documents come back here first?
No, Chair. They'll be coming back to yourself, to the Vice Chair, and to
Right.
Councillor James.
That's fine. So is it just down to us to approve it, or does it have to go somewhere else after that?
No,
That'd be down to us.
again through you, Chair. It'd be down to yourselves.
Right.
Obviously, we'll report that back into the board through our green space and playing field strategy report, so all members will be aware of where we've got to.
Okay, brilliant. Any other questions? In which case I will sign the minutes. Before I get you all over. Thank you. So, moving on. So we've got to item 6, which is the general fund fees and charges. I don't know if there's anything that any of the officers want to speak before we just ask questions. There's nothing you want to say, we'll just go straight to questions. Okay, questions then. Thank you.
I've got a couple on this, I'm afraid, Chair.
Okay.
But we'll kick off with page 17 of 109, which is about the proposed increase in the charges on the artificial pitch at QE, going up from £40 to £45 an hour. I think we've spoken on a previous meeting, maybe it was last year. Is this recognised in the area? I mean, is it a cheap rate? Is it an expensive rate? Is it mediocre? It just seems rather a large increase.
Yes, you, Chair. So I think last year's fees and charges board, was it Councillor Hancock, wasn't it, raised that we were particularly cheap. So that sort of sparked some benchmarking to be done. Even though the prices have gone up, from the benchmarking we've done, Nuneaton area, Hamlet area, Ashby, etc., we still look like being the cheapest bar one facility in Nuneaton, which is a 2G, which is similar to ours. So although it has gone up by probably 9 or 10%, it's still comparably a decent price.
So it's still competitive.
Yeah.
We're not scared that we're going to shy away people from not using it, because that relationship with the QE seems to work out very well, and how do I say this? Profitable for the borough.
Yeah, no, fairly confident in prices that have gone up. I'd emailed Councillor Hancock a few times back and forth in terms of benchmarking as well, and he shared some prices from town as well as us doing our bits as well, and we were still cheaper than he's currently paying.
Okay, thank you.
And your second point?
Let somebody else have a word. I'll come back.
It was kind of an extension of what you were saying, and just to kind of really understand why when they're booking multiple weeks, obviously, I understand we've got that special relationship and we want people to book continually, but we've got some significant price reductions in there. Was that part of the benchmarking as well?
Yeah, so most clubs pay for the longer booking periods, because most groups will pay for sort of seasonal. So you'll have people start from sort of September, October through to the end of March. So you'll get like a long period of booking. So and most will only book sort of the one pitch. So the main price you're comparing is probably either the 31 plus or the 10 to 30 weeks at one pitch. So they're the sort of costs that people are really looking at. Hockey do slightly different, because sometimes they'll book more, but normally because they've got groups, they'll still split up into individuals.
So do they pay ahead? So if they book for, I don't know, 10 weeks, do they pay 10 weeks up front?
So they're invoiced, so
Oh.
they sort of agree the bill. And some are paid different, some sort of pay each week, some will pay monthly, some will pay quarterly, so it just depends on.
Yes, it's just the point that if they're getting a reduced rate because they're having so many weeks, we don't want to pay them to pay for 2 weeks at a time and then decide they don't want the rest of them.
No, they're on contract.
Okay.
Even so, I understand the encouragement why we have a reduced, but even so, we've got a drop in price of those between, you know, are we saying we were too expensive now? So the £36 down to 32 in 2024. Are we saying we were too expensive? Because it seems to be dropping in the future.
Through you, Chair. Russell might want to add to this, but there's a bit of equalising up going on within that, because for some, in terms of lifetime card holders, the price has gone up. It's a question of pitching it at the right level, given that we're taking the need to have an active card away.
Oh, right. Okay.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you. Jackie.
Yeah, I just want to pursue this actual quite important change of policy from a member-based card system for which there were benefits, including price reductions if you joined upfront, and what now is going to be a sort of universal £1 fee for everybody, which is more or less a kind of, you know, freebie, isn't it, in terms of belonging. And whilst I have no objection to that idea, and although we haven't yet seen the poverty proofing report that gives apparently the rationale for doing that, and I can believe that an upfront payment to become a member is off-putting for people that haven't got much income. There is something about the kind of handling of this in terms of the member database, the marketing, the promotion, the holding on, following up people that are dropping out, that if you abandon the membership sort of approach and commitment of both parties, if you like, to hold that relationship, and you just basically go in for a sort of almost a casual user, have a card because you've decided to pay the £1, but there's no real benefits apart from the advanced booking. I'm just curious from the experience of elsewhere what the real benefits have been, and in terms of the future, how we're seeing this. And I don't understand the difference between, if you like, the casual user who wants to go for a swim, the advanced booking of exercise classes in some of the studios that are there in, say, Addiston Leisure Centre, and the more kind of regular uses of halls that whether you might want to book in advance because it's popular and so on. So I'd quite like a little bit more explanation of that policy change, because I don't think, apart from the poverty proofing, we've got much rationale for doing it at this point. And the second thing is, in terms of the transition, if I join and pay my, is it £11.50 or whatever it is to join up in March, and this comes in the 1st of April, am I going to get compensated, or will I see that everybody else that joined and waited to join in April for £1 is actually having much more, if you like, for their money than me having paid my £11.50 up front to become a fully fledged member, for which there is no real benefit apart from the advanced booking. Do you see what I mean? There could be some issues if people are joining in March and then the following month it becomes £1. I don't understand how that transition between paying up the full amount and now then only being charged £1 is going to be handled, and it potentially could lead to quite a lot of grumbling unless it's handled smoothly, because it isn't done on a calendar basis, is it? You pay when you join, you pay for the year. So those are my two questions.
Okay, so there's two issues. One is more about the rationale for doing this, and secondly, what about people who are already
Yeah.
members or are about to be members?
Okay, yeah, through you, Shal. I'll do the second one first. So on the membership changes, when people sort of pay for a card, the card lasts for 12 months and then it's renewed. So we had a discussion with the team and we flagged exactly that point, that would be an issue. So what we've said is at the point, if we do go ahead, if this is agreed, approved, then we can add credits to systems, and what we would do is we would email people to say, with the changes, you will have the value that's left on your card added as a credit to your system, and you can spend that as you like, I suppose. And so if someone's paid £11.50 and they've used 6 months of it, and they'll have half of that left, and we'll credit that to their account and we can use that for their services. Preempting this, we did put a promotion on the card prices from January to bring it to £2 to sort of reduce the impact it might have should we agree the changes for now. So that's reduced the number we'd have to do that for. And the first question, we looked at sort of benchmarking prices, and a lot of the feedback initially through poverty proofing was that people were swimming and doing pay-as-you-go activities elsewhere because they thought we were too expensive. We were more expensive than our competitors, and we're not. We have two prices. We have a non-member price and we have a member price. Our non-member price is higher, our member price is lower. When people first look, they're looking at both prices, and they're a non-member, then they're assuming they're paying this, so they're paying more. So one of the changes moving forward is to simplify our prices, make them more easily understandable, more digestible, easier to advertise and promote, and also easier to sell on front desk, but also so that people know that our prices aren't more expensive than competition. So shop local, I suppose. If you benchmark against other places, if you go to, for example, Snowdome, which is a private operator, they just have one price. So you turn up and you pay that price. They don't have a two-price system. If you go to Everyone Active gyms or places for people, so Hinkley, Nuneaton, other places, they will have a system where you turn up and again you just pay the price, but they try to encourage you to sign up to be a member, and they do that because they have your details. They can use their details for marketing, promotion, newsletters, and then to add to that, they look at sort of booking privileges. They look at discounts on cafes. They have cafes, but at the point we have them, that's something we can look at. And then they look at member retention benefits and schemes. So they're things that we can add either to pay for or try and work in through attendance, gaining points, or through links with local businesses or with wider businesses, getting vouchers to people. And then as we sort of work through, it's communicating our offers, communicating our latest news, communicating different things through. So the rationale behind it, I suppose, is to, at the minute, that card, rightly you're saying, doesn't seem to have a lot of value. That's why it's only £1. But as we go through, we start to add value to that card. The other reason for doing it was to avoid the price barrier. So if you're a junior member, you need a card. If you're a concessionary member, to get the concessionary benefits, you need a card. So in theory, as it stands, you have to buy a card, which costs, I think, £7.50 for the junior concession to start to benefit from that discount. Whereas now, you don't have to just benefit from it, you just enter it straight away. But it's our job from that to convert them to a membership. So that we can get their details, so that we can give them extra benefits moving forward. That's sort of and in the planning in the future now moving forward.
So it sounds as though there may be some risk at this point in time then of losing a member database which you currently use, because why would people bother to join at the moment if there's no real clear incentive apart from maybe a small segment that wants to go on using regularly. I'm just obviously the member database is crucial, isn't it, in terms of your data and your promotional work. If people basically can just show up and have a casual attendance, you're not going to have that database, are you, of who's coming?
So anyone who wants to sort of book online, or anyone who generally joins, signs up for an account. There's very few people that will just sort of turn up with no details and just a name and numbering system. Most people will have some sort of sign up. And when they sign up, we have their details because that goes straight onto our system. And from that, we can see about usage, you know, who they are, where they're from, etc., and what they're interested in. So I don't think we'd lose that, and we'd still have the categories of. So when people join, whether they join as, you know, because there's only one card, we would still categorise them into sort of concession junior, etc., because that would establish the benefits they receive. So you can still report on all the same things in the same way. So I don't think that we'd lose it. I think we'd get more people, because I think people are more inclined to pay £1 to get something than they are to pay sort of 14.50 or 12.50. So
Okay. Thanks.
Just, can you actually just turn up? Do you have to book online?
you can turn up.
And pay us swimming or work?
Yeah, you can. It's a higher price for a non-member. So the gym, as an example, is £7 to turn up, or £5.60 if you've got a membership, or I think it's £3.50 for a session. So you can just turn up. Yeah.
Okay. Mark?
Change of subject, away from leisure, away from you, Russell. Page 22 of 109, dog fouling. Told you it was a change of subject. First of all, have we actually issued any fines against dog fouling? Secondly, how do we spot people dog fouling? And thirdly, why is the dog fouling penalty stuck at 80 quid when the littering penalty is 100 quid? Surely dog fouling and littering is exactly the same.
Is this yours, Richard?
Those are three excellent questions, the answers to which I do not know. But I will find out and come back to you on that. Chair, to be honest, environmental health deal with this. I don't think there's anybody from environmental health here, so we will ask the question and we will get back to you.
But do you not agree on the basis that littering and dog fouling is very...
In most of the cases for fixed penalty notices, we have equivalents for offences, so it is unusual that they are different. I'll ask the question. I'll get back to you.
It's almost more interesting than the price is whether we actually activate
Yeah,
it.
we don't. There's no enforcement.
No, I agree. I don't think there's any enforcement. I don't know how we would. We haven't got a dog person, have we now? Dog warden, what they call them. Did you want to come back, Mark, before I go to Denise?
Not on that, but I've got slightly... I'll let Denise go first.
All right, fine.
No, one was a little bit of an add-on to that. Could we also find out how many fines we've had for actually littering? So if you walk down Long Street, you'll see all the dog ends, the what's called bag ends, then in outside a lot of the pubs and the shops. So it'd be interesting to find out how proactive we are with this, because I know in other places we are. And mine was on page 23. So if Councillor Jordan's is before mine, you can carry on.
Mine was... I lost the page actually. It was... you carry on, Denise.
Right, page 23, this is just information because I'm not quite sure about it. The mobile homes, the new application fees. Is this just for private sites like the one at Arsenal, or is there any way we can do the same for traveller sites?
Right, who's going to take that one? Everybody's looking at you.
I think it's going to make me to turn up. An excellent question, Councillor.
Yes, Prime Minister.
I might just record that. I will also get someone to come back to you with an
Thank
answer
you.
to that question.
Thank you. Did you want to come back on that? Ross?
Yes, so it was not this, it was a point before. Someone mentioned, and I can't remember who it was, apologies, about the price looking like it was coming down on the grass pitches and sorry, not grass, the QE pitches. The reason it looks like it's coming down is because when people book the pitches, they need to have a lifetimes card. So the price you're actually comparing with is the one in the middle of the lifetimes card holder. So if you compare that price, it's going up in each case.
Okay.
Sorry, apologies.
Thanks. So back to you, Mark, then, Jenny.
Right, and final question on this agenda, but it was page 10 actually, and it was point 3.4, I think it was, cesspool waste disposal. It seems as though we're being, well, certainly we're looking at an increase there in that paragraph 3.4, but it's a service that we don't have to provide, if I understand correctly, and it's costing us a lot of money to provide it. So why do we provide it?
Do you want to go first?
I don't know who's going to do it now.
Well, you'll get answers to this one. That's a start.
I was going to say, currently, Chair, if I may say, we actually recover some costs which go towards our overheads. Because the disposal charges have increased, it's taken that benefit away, which is one of the reasons we are looking to increase the price. And if we can increase the price as set out in the report and get the income from that, then although we're not showing an overall profit, it does contribute to our overhead. So it's still financially, at least, worth doing. If it doesn't generate that additional income, then there's no doubt financially, as I say, why are we doing this service and continuing to do this service?
Okay, so we'll monitor it then and see the new price.
Yeah, and further to that, Chair, that there is another piece of work to be done on successful emptying. It is one of these things where we try to be consistent in charging, with the cost of delivering the service varies quite markedly from location to location, depending on time spent and complexity of the site and what have you. So there's been an initial piece of work that we need to revisit that may we will come back to you in fullness of time and propose a different way of charging for successful emptying, which may make the service more efficient and therefore pay for itself more. But that's for the future.
I was going to say, at least to make it pay for itself.
Yeah. Pay for itself and contribute to overheads. Those are the criteria for carrying on, so we'll monitor that. Jodie, sorry, you had a question.
I've got a couple. One was on page 23, and it kind of carries on with the pictures and the HMOs. And we seem to have a price for 2 to 10 and then 51. And with the HMOs, we have a 2 to 4 and then a 20 plus. That doesn't seem to be anything in the middle. So it's pitches 2 to 10 is 360 and then 51 plus. But then, what if you've got 12?
Well, that's an excellent question. I didn't know the answer. However, I wish I'd say that.
My main question was regarding the increases in prices with the trade and refuse, and just kind of concerned about our community groups and schools that are already struggling. I know several community centres that are struggling to keep the doors open at all. Wouldn't want to think that an increase in their bin collections had been their final straw. Is there the capacity to kind of deal with things on a case by case basis if they can't afford the charges?
I think the answer to that in terms of the fees and charges is probably no, in the sense that the fees and charges are fixed. However, it's always worth sending one of our supervisors to do a waste audit and talk to them about exactly what sort of bins they need, what sort of waste they're getting rid of, and what sort of fruit collection they need. So it can be the case that they're overpaying for a service that's only provided. Therefore, we may be able to get costs down by having a good look at what they produce and when they produce it and how often they need those bins empty to make sure the waste we're taking away. So yeah, I can certainly, but the first step is always, if you've got any concerns about that, have a chat with us and we'll come out and speak to you about exactly what we do to help.
Jackie?
Yeah, I'm going to sort of be slightly tongue-in-cheek on this, in the sense that the price for birthday parties and use of the pools and so on, Addiston complex. So if you like, the families that want to celebrate birthday parties use bouncy councils. They're facing a 30% hike in price compared with the standard price previously. In fact, it's more if you look at the Lifetimes card holder. But for the leafy, wealthy villagers that have got gardens, we're not putting the price of their green bin collection up at all. We're not even taking account of a 4% inflation uplift, let alone a 10% inflation. And I just wondered what the kind of levelling up debate that's gone on amongst officers about why the people with gardens, the privileged, have escaped from any price increases, but the poorer families of Atherstone and Coleshill have been hit with a 30% inflation in this pricing structure.
You, Chair. Russell, do you want to pick up the issue of the leisure related?
Yes.
What, from a leisure perspective, we're just looking in the context of the leisure division. We haven't looked across the whole breadth of the fees and charges for which this board is responsible. But if Russell just explains the rationale between some of the price increases in leisure.
Yeah, of course, yeah. For leisure price increases across the board, we've tried to do it through benchmarking, but also looking at our costs. So one of the things I didn't mention with pitches is that we are comparably okay through benchmarking, and that's even with people's prices going up. But we as part of our agreement with the school, we pay for the floodlights, and so we're expecting to get, and it was a prediction at the time of discussion with them around October, because they hadn't had their bills yet, but they were looking at a double in price. We're looking at an extra sort of £3,000 to £6,000 that we have to sort of try and make up within our space. Parties have gone up. For Coleshill, they've gone up £10, I think, or possibly 11. But for Atherstone, they've gone up 20. What we wanted to do was get the two parties to be the same price because they offer the same service. So if you go to Coleshill, you'll get a bouncy castle and a bouncy castle obstacle course with some soft play, with some chairs and tables for food, and you get exactly the same at Coleshill. You get the same amount of time for your party, but for some reason there was a discrepancy in what you were paying. So we wanted to balance those, but also we did some benchmarking, and we found one or two Tamworth Way for around the £90 mark currently without any price increase, but a lot of them the other way were sort of 170, 180, £200. And so we thought that parties was something that we could put a price up for, as it's a one-off cost without sort of too much impact. And so the decision was made to put parties up, whilst in other areas, for example, in courts or in swimming, we could try to keep the price increase to the minimum. So that's
okay. Richard, do you want to come back on the green bins?
Yes, just briefly, Joe. I mean, in terms of green bin emptying, I mean, we have kept the price the same, and with leisure, there have been some benchmarking what other authorities are doing. So the two is that one is that we do realise and accept that it's a cost of living pressure, and therefore the price we try to keep the same, and that's standard pretty much across local authorities in Warwickshire. They've kept the prices the same this year, and when the scheme was introduced, I believe we said we'd hold the price for as long as we could on that. I mean, the price of replacement bins, I think it's mostly paid for by developers, has gone up. But in terms of where householders are paying that price, we've tried to keep it at £40, but it will be subject to review next year as well.
Yeah. Okay, Mark.
Jack, could Russell just repeat what he just said about the QE and floodlights, please?
Yeah, of course. So for the QE agreement, we pay for the electricity on the floodlights. Because the utilities will have gone up
Astronomically.
yeah, our fee will go up for that. So part of our increasing in prices is looking at the recovery of that money, if you like, I suppose. So it's to cover the costs that we're incurring as well as the benchmarking. So we looked at a few things in there.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
And a question to that question. So does the QE put any money towards the floodlights bill as well?
Not the floodlights, no, but the maintenance of pitches and facility, etc. So we pay for no electricity for the indoor, but we do for the outdoor.
Is it a good deal?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, this last year we generated at the end of it, around about £22,000 surplus, of which he split 50-50. So
Yeah,
we'll see
that was that, yeah.
on the fees and charges, you won't see that £11,000. It'll be a bit less than that because through the COVID 2021 and 2019, there were some outstanding bills that needed to be settled between us and the school, and so it's slightly less. But the overall sort of revenue generated that was a profit, if you want, for this year without previous debt was around each.
And it's, sorry, through you, and it's a good partnership that's working, everybody's happy.
They're really happy. So we met with them quite recently, myself and Steve, who oversees QE. They're ecstatic with how things are and happy to extend.
Yeah, because I know that's coming on to another agenda item, isn't it? Thank you, Russell.
Thank you. Sorry, turn on. Yeah, thanks very much for that. That's obviously prompted a really good discussion. So we are, obviously we've got some, yes.
Through you, Chair, one very, very minor, but just so that we've got everything straight. Can we make a slight change? It's on page 6 of 12 or 17 of 109. You can take your pick, it's the same page. Indoor sports hall at QE is marked up at £35. Can we just change that to £35.50, please? So it's equalised with all the other sports halls, just so that you know what it is that you're voting for.
So that should be where it says
£35.50.
sports hall adult 35.50.
Yep. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we've got some piece of information coming back to us, Marion.
Sorry, Chair, page 27, you've 3.8.1 group space budget. It talks about sports pavilions.
Page 27, that's not on this.
That's not on this agenda.
Oh, is it not on this chair?
It's the
Sorry,
next
I'm
one.
firing across. Okay.
We have been a long time on this.
I'll shush.
You can bring it up in a bit. So, as I say, we've got some information that's going to be circulated as a result of some of the questions, but we are just asked that the schedule of fees and charges 23-24 set out in Appendix A be accepted. I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Marion, thank you. All those in favour?
Chair, before you vote, what about that, the report up about the dog pound charges?
They're coming back. It's coming back to you.
Coming back.
But if you vote on this,
I'll
doesn't that
see.
make the charges what the charges are?
Right. Are they likely to change as a result of your investigation? Or is it laid down in the law how much you can charge?
I wish I could answer that, Chair, I can't. So without that advice, I can't answer that.
So what we'll do then is I'll set out in Appendix A be accepted unless there is some change coming back from further information. Yes, sir.
Sorry, could I just chip in? With regard to the animal fees, if we find out some information which we think would change your decision, I don't believe there's anything to stop us bringing the report back and for us to change the price going forward if we choose to do so.
Oh,
Just on that one item.
One item.
Yeah.
We've certainly done that before, Chair, with
Yeah.
in terms
Okay.
of
Yeah.
fixed maintenance for duty of care offences and the way
And-
so yeah, we can.
And then if I could just, when you move the recommendation, if you could move it with the adjustment just mentioned by Simon.
yeah, the adjustment
Just
on page
Thank
20.
you very much.
Whatever page it was, sorry, 17, wasn't it? Page 17, 35.50 instead of 35. And so we are going to accept this if we do, subject to any further information coming back, in which case it'll come back to us. Okay. Sorry, did you get that down there? Thank you. Those in favour, please. Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Right, thanks. Did you get? Is that okay, Amanda?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, so thank you very much. Moving on then to agenda item 7. General fund revenue estimates. Okay, I'm going to go straight to questions on this, if anybody's got any.
Mark, me again, sorry.
That's fine, you don't have
Uh,
to apologise for asking questions.
Page 26 of 109, and it's points 3.5.1. and it's concerning the employee costs have increased on the street scene grounds maintenance by just over 50k by the continual use of agency staff. Is that not something we can work on to I mean, I don't know if I could mention it, but I'm on another committee where we've agreed apprentices through the council. Is there no way that we can have apprentices coming through grounds maintenance rather than relying on agency workers?
Through you, Chair, you are aware that we're looking at efficiencies in both grounds and streets. Staffing obviously forms part of that. It's certainly something we look at. Councillor, we are obviously in a difficult position of trying to find savings and trying to find efficiencies whilst at the same time delivering a service that we can be proud of. I think we're certainly doing the latter. We're struggling a little bit with the former, but that's certainly a suggestion we'll take on board. And then we'll again be coming back to you, Chair, in the future with some suggestions on grounds and streets as well.
Okay. Sorry, my pages have shot.
Yeah, I mean, we're a bit, I suppose, perplexed by this paper in the sense that it's scary in some senses about what the revised budget for last year is looking like, what the budget for 23-24 is beginning to look like in terms of taking account of the additional costs of utilities and staff. But at the same time, the introductory paragraph says we need to make budget savings of 1.9 million in 23-24. And I'm just in terms of, so how can we approve the recommendation for this budget and estimates of expenditure against what I assume are going to be some fairly tough discussions about how much we've actually got to spend and how this shortfall is going to be accommodated in the budget governed 23-24. Maybe it's ignorance on my part. I haven't been here nearly 8 years. I still don't understand how it works, really.
So, I was going to say, Chair, if I come back. So the £1.9 million that's referred to initially was part of our strategy. We're hoping to take out 1.9 million from our 23-24 budget. As you've noted from the report, it is scary. We've had huge increases in utility costs. We know we've had a pay award above that which we budgeted for. All of those put pressure on our current budget. You'll recall perhaps back in October when we went to executive board, we agreed the use of some earmarked reserves. And part of the use of that earmarked reserve, if you like, a change in use, was to support the budget because we knew we got these additional pressures coming through. How can you approve this? Well, that's an excellent question. I wish I knew the answer. We can't not approve it. We need to carry on. But clearly, when we come to the executive board, we'll have to look at the budget in overall terms. We will have to look at our various balances and so forth about how we continue. But certainly, we are having very challenging times financially.
Okay, so basically, sorry, Chairman, we're being asked to accept the estimates of expenditure. It's not about setting a budget, only that we need to look at them, agree that those are reasonable estimates and that they need to be looked at in the context of the budget. Is that basically it?
Yeah, I think so. It's giving us information in order to do the overall budget.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing that obviously our costs are going up. As you say, scarily, actually.
Chair, the only thing I would say is if any members have any suggestions for how we can reduce those costs, I would be incredibly grateful. Any answers on a postcard, please?
Mark.
I haven't got the answer to that, by the way. Just another question. It's concerning the transport costs, which have increased by quite a lot. I'm just wondering, have we had some new vehicles, Richard? And if we have, how are they performing?
Through this year, we have had some new vehicles. We've got 68 HGVs and refuse collection vehicles. They're only just coming to service. The last one was delivered towards the end of December. Takes a little while to get them fully set up and on the road. 5 out of the 6 are now on the road. They've got bigger capacity. They are more efficient. They will start driving down our overall, well, in gross terms, they'll drive down costs, but fuel costs are still high, and that's the problem. We've made some real efficiencies actually, over the years in terms of fuel usage and efficiency of vehicles and route optimization and all sorts of things. But at the same time, we've seen fuel prices rise to overtake any of the efficiency we've made. But they have got a large capacity, they are more fuel efficient, and that they will help, towards our overall aim of making the service as efficient as it can be. But they still do about 3.5 miles a gallon in the bottom line.
If I may, I've just heard that possibly at least two of them was straight back in the yard for repairs. That's the only reason I asked how they're performing.
Yeah, one of them is certainly still been has an issue on one of the sensors. I mean, they're all under warranty, so obviously it's for the manufacturer to sort out. We do occasionally get teething problems, but the bulk of them are working well. But yes, it comes with the territory, unfortunately. But I'm sure they'll be all out on the road and working well. Sure.
Richard, can I just ask? I seem to remember that we'd agreed. I can't remember how long ago. That there was going to be new software, in-cab software, to help, identify premises and stuff. Where are we? Is that with these new vehicles? I don't understand where we are.
The kit's been put in them. They already work on the route optimization. The in-cab software itself is being finalised. It will be in within the next couple of months.
Okay. In the new vehicles?
In all vehicles.
In all vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to thank Jackie for picking up on a point that I lost because I lost control of my iPad.
It's easy to
But I just want to reinforce the fact that the officers have written in this report, in the section on risks to services, paragraph 6, with the worrying, very worrying aspect to me of the deteriorating condition of assets and the impact that's going to have on leisure services in particular, and it also refers to the additional costs in relation to refuse and recycling. And I think if you go on to the appendix C, which I won't try and do because I'll lose it again, that certainly the first one, the assets one, is high risk and it's high impact as well. So that has really got to be in the back of everyone's minds, really, as we go through this process.
I think I can say definitely it's not in the back of the mind, it's in the front of the mind. It's very worrying, and as you're probably aware that we haven't got swimming at the moment. The two problems that we've got, one I think was solved today, but the other one's going to be looked at tomorrow. I'm yet being told how much that's going to cost, never mind anything else. So it's very worrying. I mean, obviously we're doing all we can to secure funding. We weren't successful in this round. There's another round. We're going to try again and look to see if we've got a plan B. If we don't get that, it is right at the top of the list because it's sticky tape and plastic is Addiston Leisure Centre just at the moment, I'm afraid, and it just isn't worth doing massive investment in this facility that's on its last legs. It's a really difficult issue, and it's one that we constantly talk about. So yeah, we need to be successful in our bid. Yeah.
On a slightly lighter note, page 42 of 109, I did bring it up last year, and it's all it is a reference to Addiston Market. It's not being run by Hinckley in Bosworth Borough Council at all, and hasn't been for several years. So could you take that out of the report, please? It's just run by Addiston Town Council. Thank you.
So I don't know who has the template for this report, but whoever holds it, can we please take that out? Because it was requested last week. We don't want to upset Addiston Town. Joking.
Just on savings, looking at Polesworth, and that was a scheme when we originally moved out of school. Was a scheme that we'd hoped would make considerable savings. And looking at the figures now and the predicted figures moving forward, we don't seem to have changed. So kind of it just seems to have moved from Polesworth Sports Centre to the Polesworth Gym Hub, and we still seem to be spending exactly the same. but we don't seem to have made the savings we were hoping to and moved to a more community model. And now obviously we're picking up more services in Polesworth, which is brilliant, but then obviously there's a cost increase with that.
Right. It was to answer that. That's fine.
Through you, Chair, I don't, Russell might want to add to this, but obviously, subsequent to the issues that we had when we located all of our services up at Polesworth School, we then took the decision to move to the fitness hub in the centre of the town. We've still got certain services on a short-term hire agreement at the school and also at an alternative venue in Dordon to keep that spread. But we've also been impacted obviously by a variety of other things that are affecting cost that all leisure operators are suffering from. Not necessarily the pay award, which was larger than the budget before. We've got that. We've got all the utilities cost issues. We've got the struggles brought upon operators as a consequence of the pandemic. And I think one of the things that we might do is bring back a report about where we were when all the services were consolidated in school and where we are now, just so that members have got a broader picture about what's going on and why that changes. So we will endeavour. There are a lot of other things going on as well, not least trying to keep a 50-year-old facility down the road open. We'll endeavour to bring that back to the board next time around, but we'll certainly make sure that we provide a composite report to members if that would be helpful.
It would be very helpful. I think it is slightly disappointing that what we've done at Polesworth is still still costing us something. So we need to just get
Indeed.
Okay, so it'd be good to see a special report on that. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. 3 questions, but virtually under the same umbrella. 381, premises under the grease space budget. Premises costs has increased by 11,510 due to the increase in gas and electricity prices and other running costs associated with operating the sports pavilions. First question is, how many pavilions have we got? And then if we go to Leisure Centre and Memorial Hall, premises costs have increased by 428,110 with 478. That increase due to the increase of prices in electricity and gas, which is a similar thing. But then if you go 7/76, page 29, the green space budget again, premises costs have increased by 23,980, although utility costs at the pavilions have increased by 29,040p. This has been offset by the reduction in the contribution to the building maintenance fund. So have we got lots of pavilions? Because it looks like there's still lots of budgets for.
Through you, Chair, we don't have lots of pavilions, no. In actual fact, we have lots of recreation grounds without pavilions, which is one of the reasons why we constantly have to suppress some of the prices associated with our sports pitches. Have we got 4? I think.
Yeah, I think.
Yes,
We've got
yeah.
4.
So we
Could you
don't.
name them, please, if you don't mind, because I'm interested as to know where they are.
That's a very good question, Chair. We'll name them tomorrow.
You've got me to know.
We've got Piccadilly.
Right.
We've got them theoretically at Manchester, although there's not a lot left.
There's no recharge for that.
The facility at Manchester. Come back to me. Reference the others. We've got Ansley Workshops. As well, and I can't remember the 4th off the top of my head, but we'll confirm.
You sure Manchester ain't plugged into the one in Manchester then for the electricity? Being as there's nothing there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more? Andy?
Yeah, page 25 of line 9, 3.2 leisure centres and Memorial Hall. Memorial Hall. Just what is the overall cost of those services?
Sorry, Chair, I'm still writing the note to make sure I don't forget the point about pavilions.
I think the question was, can we just have a figure on the overall cost of leisure services?
Yeah,
I know we could work it out if we did some sums, but help us.
Through you, Chair, the net controllable cost on leisure facilities is around about 1.6 million, I think. Hey, that's not bad, is it? Get a seal of approval from Sue. Thereabouts, that's the net controllable cost, so that's not including central support and capital charges on that. And obviously that cost is a considerable increase on the pre-pandemic level of cost associated with these facilities for the reasons that have been spelt out.
Okay. Yes.
Again, it's back, I'm sitting next to him, you see, this is where it is. Right, page 32, 5005, animal control, we've got 12,690. Now, I know we've not got a rat man and we've not got a dog warden. I'm just wondering what animals are we controlling with what we put in the budget?
We've got some strange animals, you don't know that.
No. Although our activity in that particular area has gone down, if we get reports of dogs that need rounding up and want to, I don't know how to put it nice particularly, but put into kennels or looked after, we have to arrange for that. And of course, that costs us money.
Okay. So at least we know if I see a dog roaming, I can phone the borough and you'll
You have
round
to
it up.
capture it.
Please don't, because it'll add to my costs.
So who do we send out?
You have to capture it yourself.
You do?
No, nobody comes to capture it. Once you've caught it, you can then phone either the police or and they'll come and collect it.
No, but in some cases we do have to put.
Yeah, coming back to Jodie's point, if we take it to the kennels, then the person that takes it to the kennels is responsible for anything that's fees, vet fees, or unless you just say it's abandoned.
Sorry, Chair, am I missing something? So what do we actually do, or what do we actually provide?
We pay for kennels in some instances.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, okay, so, look around, no more. So we're being asked to accept the revised budget for 22-23, which is obviously it's almost been. And to accept or otherwise vary the estimates and expenditure to 23-24, so they can be included in the budget brought forward to the exec board. So as we say, it's about informing that budget rather than being the budget. And we've also asked for a paper to come back to the next meeting on Poleswood, the whole of what we provide in Poleswood and Dordon actually provided there as well, what used to be under the Poleswood school contract. So we can look at that in detail. Okay, I'll propose that from the chairs. I've got a seconder. Thanks, Mark. Those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Okay, thanks. All right, Amanda, thank you.
Yeah. So just as an aside, I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm clearly not very well. The other pavilion is Boot Hill Green.
How could you forget that?
No, I
It's on
don't.
top of our agenda. Andy won't let us forget that.
I didn't buy it because it's not yet finished.
That's where all the electricity's going.
Yeah. Right, let me just get the right, is it number 8 next? Where am I? Yes, item number 8, which is the capital programme. Thank you. So can I just say before I ask the questions, on the appendix A, and you'll see there's a table there, it's just an amendment, but it's incorrect. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th line down, where it says leisure scheme, sorry, can't even say it, leisure scheme at Sheepley Road, it should say leisure scheme at Royal Meadow Drive, just so we're clear about what it's about. So that's just a change of the error in the printing. So, have I got any questions on this? Becky?
Yes, I understand an email has gone around basically saying we didn't succeed with the area bid. And it would be helpful to know really where that leaves our approach to trying to rebuild the Atherstone Leisure Facility. And even if we had succeeded, would that have covered the overall costs of rebuilding, replacing the leisure facility? And at what point does I think one of the options was Atherstone and Polesworth coming together as a facility for, the north part of the borough. I mean, it just strikes me that we don't seem to have much success in this bidding game. I mean, Andy Street called it the begging bowl approach to trying to get money out of government rather than it based on need or, need for replacement and a kind of topping up of local authorities so they can actually do what's needed. It's where do we go from here, basically?
I will hand over to Richard in a minute. Well, obviously, it was really disappointing. All I can say is that we have done a huge amount of work behind the scenes, and the architects that are working with us are working towards the budget. So we knew how much money we would have, plus we were putting a little bit in as well, so that it was being designed to a price. There is a third round, and we are sort of, we've done the work, we're obliged to go into the third round, I think. Whether there'll be a review, well, there will be a review. Whether it will change significantly, I don't know, because we haven't done that yet. So I will pass over to Richard, because he's been sort of leading on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it is disappointing. Personally, I thought it was a very, very strong bid. Very well put together. We got an awful lot of support externally and internally, and to put a very, very good bid together. I think anybody who's worked on the plans that have been done, the partners that we're working with, will recognise that it was a very good facility for Atherstone and the wider borough. We're therefore very, very disappointed that we haven't been successful in getting the funding. You're absolutely right that it was future-proof in terms of costs. We thought that was another of the strengths of our bid, but despite the process dragging on, that we were reasonably confident that we got inflationary pressures contained within our bid. I think the next stage is to get the feedback from government as to exactly why our bid was not successful when others were, and try to see whether there's anything we can incorporate into a third round bid that picks up some of those points. So very strong bid. It's difficult to know what we can improve. It may be around economic outputs and that sort of thing, in which case, we need to have a conversation with perhaps wider partners about whether more can be brought in to the scheme. But I don't think in terms of changing the scheme fundamentally that there's much to be tweaked on it. But obviously we'll take any feedback from government and we'll come back to members and suggest a way forward.
Can I just ask, I'm losing the plot really around this levelling up kind of policy and the monies that are coming linked with that. As far as our borough is concerned, I mean, I heard that the county council has got some levelling up monies. They're going to be running an 18-month pilot in Manchester, that they're going to be handling that, and they're going to be putting the people in. And where does that all sit in relation to the borough's bid for levelling up money that has been properly kind of thought through and does come from a sound needs base and understanding of what we need in the borough? It just feels like there's all these different bits, and I mean, could we have some kind of understanding of where the borough is sitting in relation to the levelling up, and where these different pots of money are going to either land or not land, as well as, how we do better in the future if we haven't been able to, I assume, politically made the case. If the bid itself is strong, then there must be some big politics if places like Richmond can get it and we don't, frankly.
Well, I think as Richard's explained, that as far as that bid is concerned, we'll look at the feedback and there's a third round. There are lots of things with the levelling up label. The money that the county's got the money that it's using for its levelling up, and it is concentrating on the lower super areas altogether. But for the pilots, obviously, as you say, Manchester is one. They're working with the boroughs. They're working with Manchester Parish Council. We're waiting for the action plan, because I don't know quite what they're going to do, but they are going to. They've got an agenda for levelling up. I can't remember how many pilots it is. Whether it's 3, it might be. I think it's Rugby and Leamington from memory. There's a low super.
Through you, Chair. I think it is 3.
Yeah, I think. Oh no, there might be none. It might not be Leamington. Sorry. Yeah. So so that's where we are. Richard, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that.
No, I won't speak as to exactly why some bids were successful and others weren't. We'll get the feedback and we'll obviously report back to members on what that feedback is telling us. We thought the multi-agency nature of our bid gave some real strength, and then maybe that may be an area we need to expand on. But it's difficult at this point to know what more we could have done to get that bid over the line.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair. Just one brief comment. I think I'm right in saying, Becky might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but the Chief Exec is bringing a report through to Executive Board. It might be the Executive Board meeting in February just to update on levelling up. This is in the context of the pilot project in Manchester and Ridge Lane. No doubt in the context of his corporate report, he'll be mentioning the levelling up bid for the proposed activity up down the road as well at that particular point in time. So members will get more insight into what's going on. I think that's right. The other thing I would say is it's hugely disappointing, and obviously, and extremely frustrating, particularly from a community perspective. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we have had a few wins as well. In terms of UK shared prosperity, you know, nearly 2 million quid coming into the borough from that perspective. That was a bid put in by this authority. It's supplemented that with a bid to the Rural England Prosperity Fund. We're waiting for the outcome of that, but that's potentially another £500,000 quid coming into the borough. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not what we wanted. I absolutely understand that, but it's not a catalogue of failure everywhere. I know that's not what you said.
No, it wasn't. No, it was.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's
Need a
many
different
people
MP.
in the room that would support this bidding sort of lottery that goes on. But, you know, that's the game. That is the game in town. It's the way to get money. We may not agree with it, but that's what we have to do if we want to try. So we have to engage, and we are engaging. We're engaging at every opportunity. And as Simon's just said, sometimes we are successful, unfortunately, not for the 20 million that we wanted. But, you know, we'll try and we'll make it as good as we can. So, you know, it's where we are. Okay, so it's a relatively short paper, this, but we're just, the board supports the schemes previously approved within the council's 3-year capital programmes. It's relatively straightforward. So, proposer, somebody, oh, yeah, Andy, thank you, and seconded by Mark. Thank you. Those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. Thanks very much. So agenda item 9 is leisure facilities bank holiday closures. You've got a list there on page 57. It's more or less the same as we've done other years, with the addition of the bank holiday for the coronation, which is on the 8th of May. Any questions?
I propose to move it.
Okay, thank you. Moved.
No, I just, 62 of 109, the second one of the 4.7, I'd just like to say, well done.
That's the next one. That's the next
Oh,
one.
is it?
Yes,
Sorry.
sorry. This one's short, then probably
Oh,
turned over 2 pages because it's only
That's
short.
what I've
This
done,
one.
yeah.
It's okay, we'll come back to you in a minute. So you proposed it, Mark, seconded by Marion. Are those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That's so now we move on to agenda item 10. So that's service improvement plan, leisure facility service improvement plan. Have you had a question, Denise?
No, it was really just to say, well done, thank you whoever came up with the idea of 4.71, a student reward scheme for good behaviour trial during the 6 week leading up to Christmas. I think it's a brilliant idea, and it looks like it went very well, so well done to whoever's idea it was, Chair.
Very good. Well, thank you. And I would just like to point out, 'cause I know there's been some questions about this in the context of the LAPCO. Under 4.8, 1, 2, third bullet point, you'll see there that as part of Dickens Night in Addiston, the Memorial Hall again hosted the town stalls and Santa Grotto. We do not charge for them to use it. That's one of the, I think, I don't know whether it's 4 or 5 days a year, I can't remember how many days we do.
6.
Yeah.
Oh, 6. Oh,
Six,
four.
yeah.
It was 6. We have 6 days a year for things like this, so that we support the town. So what's happening in the LAPCO specification is we're just carrying that forward, because we won't want to turn around to Dickens and say, no, you can't use them anymore. So I just thought I'd point this out. Any other questions on this one? Anybody for some reason? Okay, no, that's been covered.
Yeah,
sure.
I noticed that there is a lot of orange and straight lines, and some of that is just because we haven't got to the deadline, but we do seem to be missing.
Oh, there's a lot of, did you say orange? I haven't got.
Yeah, the
colour on
orange,
mine.
no, right, straight line.
A straight
Not-
line,
not
yeah.
orange, straight lines across. And I know some of it is about not being there yet. And I know some of it is about the policy proofing report not coming back yet.
Yeah.
Which obviously is quite reasonable, but it concerns me that obviously with having sickness and capacity issues, is this affecting our performance? is that one of the reasons why we have so many oranges? Because
You
you
can
don't
say
have the,
sickness in the staffing.
well, there's vacancies and
Oh,
there's just the
vacancies and
capacity that we've got within the staffing team. Yeah, so, and whether or not that capacity is actually affecting our performance.
Russell or Simon, whichever.
Initially myself, not particularly in the context of leisure facilities, Chair, and clearly that's what this relates to. It's different in the context of community development, but we'll come on to that in a little bit. In most of these cases, it's just a question of timing, and that there are, I would anticipate the majority will be ticked off as green by the end. I don't know whether Russell wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Often at the start of the year, we sort of set timelines, and as you go through the year, your priorities might change or shift as things come in, or as a customer requests or someone else requests or something else comes in. So it's really a shift in priorities. What I'll try and do for the next meeting is I'll try and be a bit clearer about where deadlines might change and highlight that, and whether I think things aren't achievable.
Brilliant, thank you.
So because it's specifically mentioned in the recommendation, I'll just draw your attention to 4.3 about agreement with the Academy and our relationship. We've already spoken about it, it's just set out there. So the recommendation is that we note and comment on the progress made against the requirements in the approved 22-23 improvement plan, through which operation performance is monitored, and that the board agrees to approve the proposed extension of the agreement held with the Queen Elizabeth Academy, Atherstone, for a further period of up to 5 years with effect from April this year. So, okay, so those are the recommendations. I'll propose from the chair. Anybody second? Andy, thank you. And that's everything. And those in favour, sorry, losing the clock here. Any against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. Thanks very much. So we now move on to 11, which is authority trading company leisure facilities, and we're asked to comment on the short version of the approved service specification. So you've got that set out there. Comments and questions? Anybody? Jodie?
I think this is, from what we had, this is an incredible piece of work. It must have taken, presumably Simon, an extensive period of time. I think it's real progress from where we were. And I think certainly when we've looked through it, we spent a long time already kind of unpicking it and saying, what about? And I still have to come back to the feeling that we need to have an exclusive time to actually sit down and unpick this and work on it and actually look at what we want this LACTO to be. And we've kind of been fairly consistent from the start that we are not necessarily against the idea of LACTO, but we are definitely need more input and more understanding. And we obviously appreciate the business meeting the other night, but I still don't think that gives us a clear picture of what it's going to look like. And this goes some of the way to do that, but I still would urge that we have a working group sit down and hack these things out.
Well, this particular board is responsible for this service specification. There are lots of other bits of the contract, I can call it that will go to other boards in due course. So just tonight, we are being asked to, so we've already approved the service specification in its long form, and we just wanted to get approved the shortened version. If you're asking for more time to look at the shortened version, then I think we can allow, if you want to look at it and come back, or if you're happy with it as it is, then we can approve it. I take the point you're making about your general concerns about the LACTO, but that isn't for us to resolve here, because that's not.
But even within the service specifications and what we're actually going to be able to deliver, and I think some of our concerns are about tying things up in bureaucracy and not being able to deliver. And I think that this is one of those, and especially now, I believe it's reporting straight back to board rather than the working parts of it was originally.
We never had a working part.
No, when we came for the meeting, there was a proposed having an extra layer
Yeah, but not at this point.
Yeah.
This is when it's set up, established. So, well, the point being that the service specification has been approved. This is just, do we like the shortened version of it, or would we like to see it in a different format, or even shorter, or slightly longer? I don't know, whatever. So that's what we're considering tonight. Jackie.
I mean, I think this is, for me, this is work in progress, and it has distilled, was it 72 pages into a quite short and neat framework against which, if you were trying to understand the governance of all of this, you could actually say, well, that's going to go to that bit, and that bit's going to go to the overall directors board that will be managing this company. But at the moment, we haven't teased out. There are some very operational things in here that I assume would be under the governance of the LATCO board of directors, and others that, in terms of us having the reporting in that we would expect as a local authority, we'd expect that bit to go to be the reports that we see, whether it's 3 or 4 times a year, or however that governance is going to be handled through this board. And that teasing out of what goes where, and trying to understand how that will work. I think there is work still to be done. I don't think we should expect it to be thrown up in the air and come up with something different, because I think we'll just go on round and round and round in ever decreasing circles. But I think there is a stage in which we need to understand, in the context of the LATCO emerging with its board of directors, which of these are going to be overseen and monitored by the board, and which are going to come here. And if you look at, I mean, just for example, there's something about ensure that all new staff undergo equality, diversity and inclusion training within 3 months of commencing their employment. Well, that very much is something for the board of directors to make sure that they are fulfilling those requirements, rather than it coming as a report to here. And I think the column that's marked as reporting requirement is quite slim, and if that's the basis of which we're going to kind of monitor the service specification and its successful implementation through this company, then actually there's not a lot in there, and that could be boiled down to, you know, 10 things that we look at every time. My only concern in terms of this kind of thing is we've got a service improvement plan that Russell reports against in some detail, and I hope that we're not going to have so many different sort of reporting frameworks that we're going to completely tie him and the people in the LATCO down to just writing reports rather than actually delivering the service. And I hesitate to say let's adopt this as the basis until such time as we've done some of that teasing out and understand how the service improvement plan reporting and this are going to be brought together. So I see it as work in progress, and on that basis, I think either we should do some more work, or we should ask for another sort of iteration in some way that we can spend some time on as the systems of governing the LATCO are being set up.
So I need to be clear on this. So are you saying you want another iteration of this shortened version?
I'm saying that this could form the useful basis of another stage, but that we don't want to see this necessarily back again. What we need to do is understand how what's in here gets divvied up into the different governance and steering arrangements that will ensure that the board itself are driving and monitoring the elements of this that relate to the operational side, and how the C&E board pick up the elements in here that are definitely crossovers into our business as a local authority, to make sure that its service spec is being delivered in the way that we are expecting. You know, complying with the authority's climate change action plan, for example, that can only really be done by a joint monitoring and overview of that compliance at either this C&E board or some other mechanism, if that's what we're going to have. That's being done. So, see what I mean?
So, well, my understanding is that there's going to be a governance document that specifies what does what at what level and what delegated authorities at which level. Simon, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, through you, Chair, and just very briefly, I think Councillor Chambers is right. This is work in progress. Just come back to that in a second. But the whole thing is work in progress at this particular point in time. That there are all sorts of high-level legal documents, which those of you that attended the session, I think it was last week, a week ago today, know will be coming forward to Executive Board shortly. That will set out some governance issues. This particular piece of work, for which I thank you for asking me to do, it's taken hours, is work in progress. And the reason that certain columns are still a bit thin is because there are certain issues still to be populated. But unless you want me to go and completely recast it in a different way, I'll carry on working at this. But then I think there'll be a point at which there's an awful lot of work to be done on the LATCO business planning processes, and that will come to this board as well as it will come to the Executive Board at some point in the future. And that will be an opportunity for members to say, look, these are the things that we want Russell to report on into this particular board or whatever it is, and currently your specification says a minimum of 3 times a year. We want Russell to come back to this, and that might not be, you know, have all your staff got equality, diversity, inclusion training, you know, we just trust you to get on with that. But here are some headline things that we want to know about, and Russell will also come and he'll report on performance and things like that are going on. But that will be the point, to bottom out some of this stuff about exactly what it is that you as a board want him to come and talk to you about. So that's the point that I was, you know, if you're happy for me to continue working on this, that we'll work on this and we can discuss it at that point.
Is anybody happy with the format? That, you know, never mind the content just at the moment. I mean, obviously the content's there, but the format, the tabular format, and as Simon's explained, that some of the columns need populating as more things come through the process. So that's basically what we're being asked to do. So we're not. I don't think anybody's asking for it to. We don't want it in this format. We need it to be sideways or whatever. You know, so it can carry on working on this format and come back when there's more in it.
Can I just check, Chair, is it actually a useful thing? I mean, I would hate Simon to go on beavering away as if it's actually not going to be a useful tool, a management tool, and that it's going to end up with this and all those delegated, you know, reports that it's got to be done that spells some of this out in a different way. I mean, we don't want to have to duplicate bureaucracy, do we? If it's not actually going to be useful, then in a sense, the request that we made of him should be abandoned.
Now we spend hours doing it. I suppose the answer is useful to whom? The response to your question is useful to whom? Is it easier for us to understand in this shortened tabular format?
I think it is.
Okay.
Because it gives a sort of overview. I recognise I don't want you to keep filling more and more and more in, because we'll end up with the original. I just thought as a sort of an introductory thing to the concept, and it might be, say, when new councillors come after the elections. That's the sort of thing that would give them an introduction. That's what I was hoping for. Anyway, something that was, you know, in bite-sized pieces that you could sort of help you to get a grasp of it. I don't think it precludes all the other stuff that's going on at all. That has to go on legally, doesn't it? But I thought, no, that was it. I'm quite happy with it as it stands. If there are essential things that need to be added, that's fine, but I don't think there should be the detail. I think that the lack of detail is helpful to me.
Yeah, it's just some of the columns. Perhaps when the government's documents come through, it'd be easy to see where it's reported in. So that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Just so where it's blank at the moment, we can put some.
I think this way also gives you, if you're having a meeting about it, it gives you the space to write in your comments for the meeting that's going on, or our comments, whatever, and you know where you think it should go, or if it doesn't go there, you want a reason as why it doesn't go there. So you can use it yourself, can't you, as a, you know, as you go through to understand it for yourself. So I think the layout is good. I think it carry on, Simon.
Yeah, just to be clear, as Anne said, we don't necessarily need more than you've done. We might need some of the blanks filled in when that information comes available. Okay,
Understood.
right, thank you. So the recommendation is that we comment, which I think is on the shortened version of the approved LATCO service specification as presented in the appendix attached to the report. So, proposal, thanks Marion, and seconded by Mark. Those in favour? Any against? Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't have specifications. No. Right. Thank you. So what was that? That's number 11. So number 12 is the health and wellbeing working party minutes. I'm going to just ask Marion if she's got anything she wants.
Yeah, it's quite brief really, because we've covered poverty proofing. I think one of the exciting things is that we've funded something for the sports centres with Simon, and I think I'd just like to hand over to him so as he could quickly say what it is, because we've got a meeting coming up soon, and but it's been quite proactive lately, so I think we're getting there, aren't we? So let's go for it, Simon. Russell. He's been talking so much, Simon. Wow.
We didn't see it, yes.
So we've looked at our position in the market. It's probably the starting point in terms of you've got boutique gyms, you've got sort of niche market gyms, you've got bodybuilder gyms, etc. And we sort of reviewed where we think we sit in the health part of the delivery of the market, but also looking at trying to deliver sort of affordable health care as well. So we've looked at our member journey, and we're going to pilot it at Colesworth and at Coleshill. They already do some of these like bits now. We're looking to expand it so that you can have as much or as little of a health check as you want. So as you join as a member, the idea is that if you're what you might call a seasoned trainer, someone who works out loads, then you just get a discussion, an introduction, these are where things are. And then we're looking at how we build touch points with people to make sure that whether that's in person, a phone call, or whether that's like an email with information, with his passes for a friend, with have you thought about doing our exercise classes and different things like that, through to someone who has done a bit but wants to have an induction and some support, through to someone who wants to do everything, an induction, a program, and touch base every 4 weeks with an instructor. Whichever one you are, you'll be able to access a health check. So that would be blood pressure, weight, height, BMI, and then the Health and Wellbeing Working Party have funded some scales that would give you your body fat percentage, it will give you your muscle percentage, your water percentage. It will give you those statistics for each limb, so each arm, each leg, and your torso. So you can spot muscle imbalances, you can spot where your fats lay, and give a bit more detail. It gives you your visceral fat information, which is the fat around your organs. So that's sort of a health indicator. There's an at risk and a not at risk bit.
Enough.
And more and more. Anyway, it gives you enough information so you can build a journey from something very simple to adding more each time you meet somebody. So it helps there in terms of understanding their health, understanding how we can help them achieve their goals, or how they can help themselves achieve their goals. It links to conversations about nutrition and diet, exercise outside of a gym or a leisure environment, and how they can sort of improve their entire lifestyle.
Let's not frighten them away though.
Oh no, that won't be a day one would be all of that. It would be a discussion about their goals, what they want, and then how we can go about achieving it.
Thank you.
And we put in a further bit that we're waiting for feedback on. That's the one. But we're looking at whether we can fund sort of blood testing along with that as well.
Oh, brilliant.
So to do blood glucose and blood cholesterol testing. I'm looking at if we can do that, to offer it at a fee, but also for free for people that are financially or help are receiving benefits or linked with our internal financial inclusion team to say they could refer in if they wanted to as well. And if we do outreach, we do it for free at those locations. I think we need that.
Yeah.
So it's as simple or as complex as you want it. I gave it the complex version. I probably should have gone with simple.
When you approach Warwickshire North, is that what you're saying? You're approaching them for funding?
Yeah.
One of the, well, last time I looked at the health outcomes for North Warwickshire, circulatory disease of all sorts is pretty high. And so that it's an inequality and a need in this area that Warwickshire North Place should be looking to support. Because particularly, I mean, you're already doing blood pressure, but looking for potential diabetes and cholesterol, that is absolutely essential. So, you know, and because for people that don't go, well, nobody goes to a GP now, do they? People who don't go to a GP.
That was one of the things we found when we were looking. There wasn't really a provision, particularly for the blood testing elements of it, anywhere local. And
that would be great.
To pay for it, I think if you looked at a Lloyd's pharmacy, it was £18.50 for the cholesterol test. It's £10 for diabetes test, or for the whole both in a health check. It's £25. So we're looking at £3 or £10. So really quite important service.
Let's hope it comes through. That's very good. Thank you. Thanks very much for that, Jodie.
It was just from the last minutes that we had from a Health and Wellbeing Working Party. There was some links on it with some concerning statistics. And we did say at the time that it might be useful if we explored those in more detail.
Right, okay.
No, it's not. I can't remember the specifics at the moment.
So
I just remember with all the links that came with it, there was one that was about
there's some really detailed information on the Warwickshire County Council website. You can go, well, depending on what you're looking for, in some areas you can go right down to ward level. So if you can find the link, Marion, or get someone to find the link, send it around, that would be really helpful. Okay. I just want to mention one thing on this, because I have to do it every time, and I just want to formally request that we sort air quality out, PM monitoring, please. And I know it's difficult and I know it's expensive, but can somebody please tell me how difficult and how expensive, so that we can try and find a way of doing it, because we don't do any PM monitoring at all in North Warwickshire. So we need to. Richard.
It's coming to management in the next couple of weeks. We'll come back to you.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Okay, so we just have to note those. Everybody's happy to do that. Thank you very much to the team that do that for us. Well done. So we've now got to vote on excluding the public. So if we can stop recording. So considering the corporate section of the Local Government Act, whether it's the public interest that the public has to be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of information.